welcome everybody to the Pagabo Live Pavilion. It's been a long day, so thanks for taking the time out to come and attend this event. We're really pleased to be hosting this event and hope you really, really enjoy it. So the title of it is Reflections on ICS Infrastructure Estate Strategies and Next Steps to Delivery. So I'll come back to that in a moment. I'm just going to say a few opening remarks, a bit of an outline, and I'm going to then introduce the speakers to you. Then I'll hand over to Simon Corben, who's going to do a bit of a question and answer with the panel. I think that's the plan for the afternoon. So what were my key objectives? It was like, wow, they've got a lot of people in their tent. Envy from people walking by, and I think I could say people walking by at this time of the day on a Wednesday, looking in here, there's quite a few people, so hopefully people walking by are quite envious of what we've got going on in here. That's a great panel of speakers, tick. Not my doing, so thanks to the team who have done that for us. And a big thanks to the speakers who've taken their time out to come and share their reflections with us. We're making it sociable as well, so at one point it was called a mixer. The word mixer doesn't appear on there, so we will go through the session. We'll hopefully have some very insightful commentary from the panel, and then we can get back to networking, socialising, and making sure that all the drink that's been bought is drunk, or as much of it as possible. Pagabo's got a strong link to health, actually, not because we enable great procurement outcomes for our frameworks, but for example, our long-term partnership that we have with CNTW, that's Cumbria, Northumberland and Tyne and Wear Mental Health Trust. And that goes back to 2016. It's a very enduring relationship and partnership we've had with them. So working with the Trust continually provides us with great insights into what's relevant for health bodies when building framework agreements. Then there's the money that we return back to the Trust that they put to good use. And also the link we have with them with our Pagabo Foundation. So CNTW, being a mental health trust, that spurred us on to establish the Pagabo Foundation. And what that does is we're committed to understanding and supporting mental health in the construction industry. That's very important to us. So I'll leave it there in terms of my intro, and I'm just going to introduce the speakers to you and then hand over to Simon, if that's okay. So first of all, is there an order? I'm going to go from my closest and work out. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Fiona Daly. She serves as the Director of Sustainability and Workforce at NHS England and plays a pivotal role in driving sustainability initiatives and workforce strategies across the organisation. Very much focusing on creating a healthier environment by implementing eco-friendly practices and ensuring the NHS workforce is well supported and resilient. I'd like then to introduce you to Matthew Ward. Matthew Ward is Strategy Director at NHS England and plays a pivotal role in ensuring that the physical infrastructure of the NHS is both efficient and sustainable. With a focus on innovation and optimisation, Matthew is responsible for crafting strategies that align with the broader goals of NHS England, ensuring that facilities are not only functional, but also forward-thinking. Last but not least, Katie Gosling, Delivery Improvement Director for the New Hospitals Programme. With a wealth of experience in leading transformation initiatives, Katie plays a pivotal role in enhancing the delivery processes of new hospital projects across the UK. Katie is known for her collaborative approach, working closely with various stakeholders to drive improvements and innovations in hospital construction and management. And finally, I'm going to introduce you to Simon Corben, who is Director and Head of Profession for NHS Estates and Facilities at NHS England. Simon joined the NHS in 2017 after 16 years in the private sector to lead the Estates and Facilities function, which includes both primary and secondary care estate. Building on the Carter implementation programme and Daly review, Simon leads on work including the Model Hospital, Sustainability and ICS Infrastructure Strategies, Procure 23, and delivery of the health infrastructure programmes announced by the Prime Minister in 2019. So, Simon, if I can hand over to you, I'll let you then chair this panel. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, goodness. There's a bit of an observation, personal observation. There's an enormous amount of Simons here. As a Simon, that doesn't happen that often. It was a sort of a name that died many years ago, but just really nice to see a few Simons around. Anyway, maybe we should do a team shot. Before I get into the questions to the panelists, the format is going to be pretty relaxed, and then we'll see how many questions we get, and then we'll just sort of go back into drinks and conversations. But my observation for being here for the last 2 days, well, I was here last year in the rain and sort of touched in about an hour and a half the year before, but this is that we were so keen to have a health presence here this year, and a massive thanks to you, Pagabo, for facilitating 2 of our sessions to enable that to happen, because the opportunity, and if I just assume I'm speaking to a lot of health people here, the opportunity for collaboration with local government is just phenomenal. They have greater agility than us in terms of financial opportunities, and we should really embrace that. And if we're really going to nail shifting care out into the community, I see that as a major facilitator in that conversation. So if I'm just assuming I'm speaking to a lot of health individuals, get those relationships going with your local government, or if you're a contractor, if you've got a team working in local government, start having those conversations, because I really do think there's options and opportunities that we can really move fast on if we get that right. So today is about reflections on the infrastructure strategy. It's been quite a program for us. We have it's shown enormous tenacity from the team. We've had some hurdles on our way, and I keep on saying it's concluded. Matt keeps on saying, no, this is going to keep going. I say, well, no, we need a line in the sand. We've got 42 in. We just need to finish the report. And that's really important, because right at the point of me saying it's concluded, or Matt and I disagreeing whether it's concluded or not, we do have all that information, and we're starting to see some quite big changes across the governance of the NHS. And it's actually very timely, and if that was the case 7 months ago, then it would be very difficult for this program. So I'm delighted that we are in a place of where we are, and we've got it all digitally uploaded, and that's really important. I don't want to say more because I will steal what the guys are going to say, but it is a major milestone for us. It's now the North Star in terms of capital deployment, and it will help us guide organisations through their capital planning. So I'm going to ask reflections. I'm hoping you're in order, because I'm not looking at my notes here. No, Matt's first. Then, Katie's first. Right, okay, so we're going to go to Katie for reflections, then Matt, then Fiona. Okay, go for it, Katie.
Yeah, so from a sort of focused on the acute and the new hospital programme, the ICS infrastructures are just so key to us about helping support that right sizing of the acute hospital. So the building of the new hospitals is not only costly, the floor areas, the getting the services right for the system, and actually having the ICS strategies and everyone working together to really nail what's needed in that acute hospital gives us a good platform in the new hospital programme to build the right hospital in the right place with the right services. It also, as well, is showing us ways in which we can do things better together and across the system or across regions. And we find that there's lots of services that could be done together. So we think pathology is a key one that's being talked about, rather than building lots of individual buildings to deal with pathology, having hot and cold centres. Also, the other thing that it really helps us with is as people work together within the system, they start to think about other things that they can do together. And I'm thinking there on the sort of digital side. So we've seen virtual wards, electronic patient records being rolled out, and it helps us raise the bar and to work with multiple schemes to raise that bar and get them to work together. So it's invaluable to us as we move forward through the new hospital programme to have that embedded and know we're supported by these state strategies that will drive the right hospitals in the right places.
Perfect. Matt.
Thank you. So I had a long list on this, which I should have, really. So I'm going to try and keep it to 5. So I think one of the really kind of good factors that came out of the piece of work was looking how at a local level systems were now starting to look at what we've termed as left shift, but that real investment in community and primary care. And we all talk about that, and we've all talked about it for a long time, but actually seeing it on paper and seeing systems commit to increases in funding, increases in activity, increases in space and energy in that space was really encouraging. That's really helped us nationally, because what's that meant is we've been able to really create an argument with government about funding. And we've seen that this year, £102 million for primary care through the utilisation of fund, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that just increases going forward. So, huge win in that space. That was really, really good. We now have a really clear understanding of what investment is required to deliver system strategies. So each ICS had to complete a pipeline for where they wanted to put their investment, what that looked like from a capital and revenue perspective. To give a flavour of that, that's about 13,000 projects nationally with a total of about 193 billion over 10 years. So having that and having the clarity of where we would put our money and how we would spend it across the whole of England is really powerful, and not a place we've been in historically, or not for a while anyway. The other core piece of work that came out of this is everybody familiar with Core Flex and Tail? Probably heard us a lot mentioning it, but so that's about how we've asked everybody to categorise their estate into whether they want to keep it, change it, or get rid of it in simple terms. And we now have a piece and understanding across the whole of the country as to what that looks like. And that's really helpful for us in the context of investment and everything else. So really good. And as Simon said, wherever we are in the kind of strategic estates planning cycle, having a complete understanding of where our assets are sounds really basic and sounds like something that a National Health Service should have, but we've not really been in that space. So it's a huge win. On the softer side of things, watching organisations who weren't collaborating, who were struggling in challenged environments, who were kind of sometimes at loggerheads, come together and actually produce these things that had to be agreed, sometimes publicly agreed, come together with a plan has been really encouraging, because what it's done is it's teased out all the complexity, all the challenges, all the issues, and links to my final point, which is actually the amount of innovation, the amount of best practice. We have a log back at the ranch now of all the kind of good stuff that's happening across the country, and it's really empowering. And part of our challenge will be sharing that and getting that out there. But actually, in the midst of everything being really difficult and really challenging financially, etc., it's been really pleasing to come across all these fantastic things that are happening, that happen off the will of good people, really. So that's probably my last point.
Fiona.
Thanks. Yeah, so just to build on that, and Matt touched on some really critical points there. So from a sort of capital planning perspective, you're right, we've got a really solid capital plan for each of the systems. And for me, it's more around how we use that to drive the productivity agenda. So making sure that where we're investing, it's absolutely the right place to invest, making sure that we can use that to maximise the investment that we get in the spending review, and then we place that where it's really needed in the systems to kind of minimise duplication and really drive sort of local level decision making, but for the good of the system, not just the good of one or two organisations. And in that, I guess, as you'd expect me to say, I'm really pleased to see that we've got a pipeline of net zero investments. That's something that we've been after for quite a while, and we get a lot of requests over time for, you know, we've got some extra money, or can you spend this, or what's your pipeline for that? So for us, it will allow us to sort of link up the kind of money that's available at the time it's available from the organisations that it's available, and deploy that very quickly and effectively into the health system, again maximising the impact on our carbon emissions and on our efficiency gains. For me, the kind of the second point's around the workforce. So workforce planning across the whole of the NHS is quite tricky in the estates and facilities space, and the ICS infrastructure strategies again brings together the kind of skills and capability requirements for the system, and also allows us to dig in a little bit more as to where the problem areas are that we need to address. So where is it that we need to invest in local education? Where is it that we need to invest in apprenticeships? Where is it that we need to build programs or build resource or build capability and skills, and how do we go into schools and education systems to do that. And again, that's going to build the kind of pipeline of our future workforce, which I think is incredibly important. I think just to finally touch on a point that Simon made and that was in the previous session and also has been across the 2 days. We can now really clearly articulate to local government and other bodies outside the NHS what our needs are and where we're starting from. And we've never really been able to do that. It's always been a bit tricky to work with other organisations. And I can see that this will be a really pivotal point for us to be able to clearly articulate our wants and needs and our longer term plans. And I think that might open the door just slightly a little bit more to work more closely with local government.
Absolutely. Right, let's just see if there's any questions first. Otherwise, I will ask a question. Oh, yes. Do we need a mic? I don't think we do. Just, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Rob. I'm one of the healthcare consultants from Model. So we were really fortunate to support a couple of systems in the creation of their ICS infrastructure strategies. And the ICB colleagues that we supported as part of that process were often challenged quite heavily. This is a really loaded question, by the way. I'm trying to think about how to solve
I'm going to give you the mic.
Just ask it.
Our ICB colleagues were challenged quite heavily from local government, local authority colleagues around, is this really an ICS strategy or is it an ICB strategy? And the narrative was always that it was the start of the journey, which I think was the right thing, and there would be annual iterations that would follow. So I think it's building on the point that you mentioned, Simon, which yesterday I picked up on loads of discussions around the opportunities with regenerative design, etc., etc. How do you see the future iterations drawing in local authority assets, and how do you manage the challenge of what is going to be potentially ICB changes on the horizon because of the challenges they've got financially? So it's kind of, where do you really see it going?
I don't mind. I've got an answer.
Go on.
Okay. So on the local authority bit, so we definitely set off with the ambition that a system strategy should be all of the system: local authority, voluntary sector, commercial assets, the whole gambit. So it was everything originally, including digital and everything else. To get it done and get it delivered, unfortunately, to make it work, we had to focus on the NHS initially. So the answer to your question is, when we do this again, we will try to incorporate everything else, because I think that's when it becomes most powerful. And that's been the message we've kind of done in different guises today. On your latter question about how we're going to do this with wherever the world goes, so the beauty about, Simon's already mentioned, the beauty about the numbers and the data and the harder stuff is, we have that and you can cut that whichever way you want to cut it. The really clever stuff that a lot of the systems done is they now plan on place level. And you can cut place by whichever geography you want to as well. So actually being able to piece this together going forward, whatever the geography is, whatever the planning footprints are, there's an ability to do that. I think how we do it when it comes around is going to be slightly more complicated, because we don't know who's going to have resource and where it sits. But I'm not particularly worried about how you add it up going forward now.
I just add to this that we were very clear that this is a 5-year repetitive program. So naturally, people will look at their strategies as they develop over those 5 years. But we're now developing toolkits just to take this to another level. But there won't be a request out to systems to start writing strategies. That won't happen. And sorry, what, those requests? Yeah. No, I get that feedback. And this is about a journey about corporatizing our estate. You know, it's one of the hardest things we have in the NHS is that differentiation between what we see as property professionals as a necessary requirement to think and plan and deliver, to what is a very different scenario in a care environment. And unfortunately, it just takes us a lot more time to do this. You know, maybe in future it will be more dynamic, but this will be a 5-year program, and things will change during that. But as Matt says, we've got all this information on shape. We can cut it as we see the governance change, if that changes in certain areas. But you know, so I wouldn't be, and I'm not going to give any mixed messages. I don't want people to start thinking, yeah, we need to start writing again. No. Just, you know, tweak it if it needs to be tweaked, just because things have changed. But this is not going to start again until probably late well, we're 25, 28, we'll start moving on this again. And in that in the time, we've got about 4 or 5 different work streams. Things like a state code is going to be published soon. We're looking at a number of other areas in which we can, particularly around asset management and things like that, that we can develop and ensure that when we go again, we've not only bridged some of the capability issues that we've got out in the system, but also we go to another level of detail and sophistication.
Thanks. That's a really good response, which half answers my question. So we've got an exceptional piece and needs congratulating around creating the infrastructure strategies per ICB. I think it's the first for the NHS to have this really good grip on what the art of the possible is, but it's a strategy. And we need to then turn those into plans. And that needs to happen at a system level. But all the balls feel up in the air at the moment about who's going to do that. How does that come together at place? How do you bring in partners? So I suppose, do you have any views? And I don't want to put you in a spot where you're the wrong place for future political decision. But what are the options, or how do we make sure we don't lose track of the requirement to deliver the future 10-year plan and to actually come up with delivery plans to turn the strategies into reality?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing is that we're looking, or we're validating a lot of the applications that have come in for SR1, which is the expenditure for this year. A lot of that has all linked straight back to the ICS state strategies. We will do exactly the same for what we call in health SR2, which is the 4-year settlement. So that will really dictate how we deploy capital. What sits behind that is what's going on in the NHS at the moment, which I get is really difficult. But we need to hold really strong in how we keep that property expertise and that property view on how we plan, how we deliver. So we're in a interesting place, let's say, right this minute. But we're working with both ICBs and also with regions to work out how the governance of the NHS looks. But what we're really keen on, and not keen on, clear on, is that this is the way we need to deliver the planning of the NHS. And I've got a conversation with my SMT in a couple of weeks' time where we're just looking at exactly how we keep that fleet of foot, that agility, to ensure that what we need from a property profession stays true. And that's really important to us. So it's tough, but that, you've got to look to the team and look to me to be there and able to move forward. We've had plenty of changes in the last few years, and we will enter this in exactly the same way as we did then. Any more questions? Badgie. I was going to say, you're not allowed to ask questions. No questions from my team. Are there any more questions? Okay, go on. Right. Thank you, Derek. A man that speaks enormous sense. So, yeah, thank you, Derek. Are there any other questions? If not, then please keep on asking questions whilst these guys drink their Prosecco and their beer and their wine, whatever they are choosing to drink. I think we very kindly have this venue till 5:15, so 45 minutes, just under. So enjoy yourselves. I hope you had an enjoyable day, and I hope you have an enjoyable evening. Thank you very much to the panellists.
Thank you.